part of this project, part 1 right here. You will choose one of the images from last week from Unit 1. And in this case, I'm going to be choosing the one that I have for the demonstration for hopefulness. And you would be designing type into this image that would be the keyword for that prompt. And for this one, you're welcome to change the word. Like if you feel like there's a different word that is not the keyword that was on the list for the treasure hunt, that would be okay. You know, for example, one of those prompts was like tense, difficult, or I forget the third word that I had. And I know that for the prompt list, I'd asked you guys to use the word difficult as the prompt keyword, but maybe you feel the word tense, you know, for example, is more meaningful to choose for this project, and that would be fine. You know, that would be totally fine. So you don't actually have to use the keyword per se. I'm going to demo the keyword because a lot of the keywords are good, but you're welcome to use a different word if you feel like that's better for the ultimate meaning, you know, that comes across in the piece. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to be doing hope as the word. And like I said in class, because this is a portrait orientation, I wouldn't be able to cover the image fully very well if I just sort of had hope across, like say the top or the bottom. And for this project, I do want you to cover you know, the most of the area of your image with your typography. We're going to go bold. It's all about, you know, going big and bold and doing something that is you know, visually strong and visually compelling and visually bold, you know. So with this one, I'm going to imagine that the H will be here, the O is here, the P is here, and the E is here. Now to start, I go to my type tool here on the left. I'm going to click in here and then enter an H. Now in this demo, you're seeing it really big, but honestly, when you guys first do this, your default probably is going to be like a small font size. And so I'm going to just do that over and see if it comes in with a small font size. Ooh, not that. Ooh, not that. Okay, delete. Try this again. H. So yeah, this is teeny, teeny, tiny because the default for the font size or the character size is going to be rather small. And so I'm not going to be perturbed by that. But what I can do is if I can just double click on the T over here, double clicking on this T should give me a selection for that layer. Then if I make sure I go to my window menu and then choose the workspace that's appropriate. I'm going to just escape out of the edit mode on that so I can actually choose window, workspace. And you might have photography as your workspace from before, but here I would recommend that you choose essentials as the workspace. So again, that's window, workspace, essentials. So when I have that, then if I double click on this T, that brings me into edit mode for the image. If I go into the character panel here, then I can hover over the big T, little t, which is the font size icon, and then click and drag to the right to increase the value inside the box. And I'm going to just keep going. And in this case, it actually maxes out. And that could be okay. If I'm hovering outside the image, notice that I have like a four-sided arrow right here, which means that it is the move tool. If I'm over the image, it's not the move tool. If I'm outside of the text, sorry, not the image, but if I'm outside of the text area, it would default to the move tool. So I can sort of click and drag to position it. And that could be okay, but it's not quite as big and bold, you know, as I want for you guys to like really push yourselves to explore for this project. So I'm going to, for now, check on the check box right here to commit to that size because I can't change it any bigger here. But then what I could do is go to the edit menu and then free transform. And then I can click and drag to make this even bigger just by simply scaling it up. And I'm doing this for the H before I do the other ones because you'll see in a moment, I'm going to simply duplicate this H to become the other ones, and the size is going to carry over to the other duplications. And that'll just save me some time as I'm setting this up. Yeah, maybe. And notice it's snapping. Initially, I'm going to actually just turn the snapping off. But I'm going to probably turn it on in a second, which I'll show you just in a moment why that's useful. Okay, I'm pre-visualizing here, imagining the O, imagining the P, imagining the E, and maybe about there. Yeah, okay, push return, or I can click on the check icon to commit to that transformation. Okay, now I can duplicate, and there's a couple of ways you could do that. One way is to click and drag that layer onto the icon next to the trash, which would be the new If you hover over this, it says create new layer. But if I were to click and drag like I just did, that actually duplicates. Another way to duplicate would be hover over the blank part of the right side of the layer bar, Control click to get the pop-up menu, and then duplicate layer is one of those options. Then I can just say OK to the name of it. And then I have my move tool, click on the move tool, and then click and drag and move it over. Now I actually do want to engage my snap, because what's really useful about having the snap on is it will sort of try to detect other things in your image for the layout, and it'll try to indicate how it can snap to things to keep things evenly spaced. So here it is snapping, you can see with those horizontal magenta lines, it is confirming that it's aligned along the horizontal. And then as I move it left and right, I'm getting vertical indicators to indicate that it's also even like here on this margin and this margin. And then to change it, a couple ways I could do that. If I go back to my type tool, I can go to the type tool and then click into this box and then just delete it, replace it with an O, and then click on the check right here. And then I'll show you another way that I could change it for the next one. So I'm going to duplicate the O and then go to the move tool. V is the shortcut, so I'm using the keyboard shortcut V for the move tool. And yeah, it looks like, yeah, that is indicating it's centered. Cool, great. Now if I were to double click on the T icon right here, that's a shortcut just to get into edit mode, and then I can replace the lettering that way. So that's a shortcut that I use all the time because I find it quicker than going over here. But it's up to you, which way you want to do it actually to re-edit type or in a layer. Okay, then I'm going to duplicate this, then go to the move tool, move this over to be my E. And that's making a choice here. Great. Double click here, turn that into an E, and then return. And then, I think I just need to adjust this a little bit, just for to get a different sense of spacing. I can go to my H, for example. I'm going to use my arrow key because I think the H was maybe a little bit too close to here. And this is the stuff about typography. Is like, how are you making these final decisions for the spacing of things? And that's one of the values of having each of your letters on its own layer in your layer panel. You're able to make these really small but important decisions about spacing. And sometimes just, a little pixel this way or that way can make a difference, for the overall layout and the sense of balance that you have, in a layout with lettering. Okay, my P looks fine, kind of, but I think, yeah, to line it up more with the H above, that's great. And then the E. Yeah, E centered with the O feels good. Okay, now for font styles. Now if I click on the top layer of my type, my lettering here, and then shift click on the bottom one, I have the whole range selected. Then if I go to the character panel, I can then begin exploring different font styles. And it's just updating automatically. Now the sizes are changing, and just keep in mind, of course, you can change the sizes pretty quickly after you change, a font style. And this is just like for the demo. I may not actually choose a different font style, but I wanted to demo how you could do it and how you could do it with separate layers all selected at the same time. I'm going to go for a thicker one because you're going to see why that is going to be helpful in a moment, to have a nice thick bold lettering chosen. So I'm going to just stick with what I had to begin with, the Arial Rounded, MT Bold. Click on that, and then OK. It's funny though, but it actually reset the size. Shoot. Well, just really quickly, I'm going to sort of just go back and make these a little bit bigger. Yeah, actually, I'm going to just undo that because I want to have the sizes not done. I'm going to go back to where I was a moment ago because I was pretty happy with this font style as well as the sizes that they were. But yeah, as a point in the demo then, like if you want to explore different font styles, it's good to do that with your first letter before you actually duplicate it to create the other layers of the different letters that would be part of your word. Good to explore different font styles with your first letter, because as you change font styles, it could be changing the size, and it'd be great for your own workflow to actually figure out what font style you envision would be really nice to meet the character, the personality, and the feeling of the word and the idea behind the word that you want to convey in your, really like your little poster design. Because in a way, this almost becomes like a small kind of poster once we bring typography into it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this letter, and then I'll just switch these back on to where I was a moment ago. Okay, now we're going to go and explore something that's called layer styles. So I'm going to select all of these layers. Again, I have one layer selected, and then shift click on the other one at the end of the range to have them all selected. And then I can go into what's called layer styles. If you go down to the split circle down here, click on that. No, sorry, not that one. Oh yeah, it's actually not showing up because they're selected this way. So the way to get into it, the way that I usually use myself to get into layer styles, this is the long way. You could go to layer and then layer style, and then, yeah, even that's blocking it off because only the shortcut is available. Oh, interesting. That's funny. When I was doing this morning, I was able to get in there, no problem. Layer styles. Oh, that's right. Yeah, actually, that's right. So you do need to do these one at a time. So if you have your first layer selected, now you have the FX. We'll click on FX, then we'll just go to, yeah, actually, I'll do this the other way. This is the way that I usually do it. So if you hover over the blank part of your bar, double click on this part of the bar of the layer, and that's the shortcut to get to the layer styles. That's what I always use myself, and so I get fuzzy on the other long ways of doing it. But to put this into the demo, one long way of doing it is to have that layer selected, go to your layer menu, and then layer style here, and then you could just choose one of these. But and also you could do it here by going to FX, which would be, the list of different layer styles here. I myself just double click on the right part of the layer bar to get to this window. And these are the layer styles. And for this demo, I'm going to just jump to outer glow because of the idea of hope. I'm envisioning sort of like an outer glow of like this lovely heavenly light or something. And the default should be kind of like a pale yellow, but if you want to click into there to sort of change it, you can make it a little bit more saturated yellow or more white. And in this case, ooh, yeah, actually pure white could be okay, but it's kind of nice to have a little bit of an inflection of yellowishness. Sort of a bit warmer that way. I might even like experiment with slightly orange. Not way orange at a certain point. Well, that's not too bad. Yeah, maybe like this kind of like yellowish orange. Super subtle, of course, because it's really nearly white, and so the color value that's there is really subtle. It feels like it's white, and that's a-okay. That's actually pretty good for an outer glow. So I'm going to click OK on that, and then I have these options for how opaque it is. I'm going to just stick with 100% opacity. You can just explore these sliders. Spread does what it does. The more you have for the spread, the harder the edge it is. And so I usually have like a low-ish level for the spread. And then the size is how much beyond the boundary of the lettering it is spreading outward. It's the size of the spread itself. So here it's actually kind of nice if it's pretty big size and medium, low spread. You could explore these right here as you like. I'm not going to be demoing the quality, but you could play with these sliders as well. Quick thing of clarification. The default, when you actually open up layer styles, is to have blending mode options bar selected right here. When you click on the check for outer glow, these don't change unless you change the selection for the item here in this list. You can check this without actually selecting outer glow. So just make sure you actually click on the line that says outer glow. Then you get the settings which are specific to that layer style. And that looks pretty good here. I'm going to click on OK. Now, you can actually copy this layer style onto your other layers. The keyboard shortcut for doing so on a Macintosh would be holding down your Option key, hovering your cursor over the outer glow, and then clicking and dragging and then dropping it onto the layer style above. So I just copied it there, click and drag, drop it there, and then I just copied it to the P, click and drag, and then I just copied it to the E. So I can do the eyeball on and off for each of these layer effects that I've applied. But the value, of course, of like really just playing with your settings on this first one is that it just saves you time for later, so that you know that like the quality of the spread and the size and the color and the opacity, you know pretty well that that's what you want. And then when you copy it, you don't actually have to play with the settings for any of the others because it just copies those exact same settings to the others. Is where there's going to be a bit of interesting visual magic that I want you to do to complete this first part of this project. And it has to do with what's called fill. Now, if I were to reduce the opacity of this selected layer, I can make the whole layer, which would include the layer styles, to become less opaque or even to just disappear. But there's a thing called fill, which operates in a very different way that can provide some cool magic when we are working with layer styles. Fill refers to the color which is inside the boundary of the letter. So here I have like this white, which is inside. And as I reduce the fill to 0, that disappears, which is what I want you guys to do and experiment with for this project. That disappears entirely, having it at 0. But the layer style itself is preserved. Now, ultimately, if I want to sort of tinker with this, I might reduce the opacity of the layer itself a little bit, because maybe for the ultimate blend, I just feel like the layer style might be a little bit strong, and I could just sort of reduce the overall opacity so that that layer style itself is not maybe as strong or bold as it was. That's an option for you to check out. And then if you want to have all of these fills reduced at the same time, if you just use, say, the Command key, click, and then Command click, and then Command click. And then if I reduce the fill, all of those fills will go down for each of those layers at the same time. So that's a time-saving device there. Now in this demo, I have outer glow selected, but if I double-click on this to get back into the layer style dialog window, you have all of these other layer styles, and they are all worth exploring. I'd like you guys to explore all of them for this project, and you decide what layer styles could be interesting visually to use. And then also on a higher level of things, be considering the meaning. Like, what's the meaning of the word? What are the ideas and the feelings behind the word? How does it relate to the image that you're using? And then what layer styles might help you suggest those ideas and feelings? What layer styles might help convey, those bigger ideas or the bigger themes that are suggested by the word that you bring into your poster design. So here I used outer glow, like I said, because I felt like that actually fit with the idea of hope and also this notion of skies and the sun in the sky. But there's going to be like different possibilities, and all of these are worth checking out to explore. Now, contour and texture especially may not be very useful. I would recommend not using texture. And also pattern overlay, probably not that one. Color overlay, not as useful for this project, so I would avoid color overlay. Also gradient overlay, not that one, but ones that would be, I think, potentially good and useful would be outer glow, gradient overlay, sorry, not gradient, outer glow, satin, inner glow, inner shadow, stroke. These are just two different stroke lines of the same thing. And then maybe bevel and emboss, but not the texture version of it. So I'm going to just say that really quickly, but it's up to you guys to explore, have fun, check it out, and see what you come up with. Okay, and I'm going to just pretend I'm finishing with this one as it is, and then thank you for watching this.